Hello and welcome back, and it's eVTOL Fan Club. We're back, guys. We've had a big week in the eVTOL space. Joby's been flying the flag, and I think there's quite a lot for us to cover. I think you can see it there from the title. It's going to be celebration time, or will it be time to sell? And we're going to cover that in this video. But first, let me introduce the panel that we have here. So I have Liam, who I started this with. He's big into the VTOL space, very big into the Rocket Lab space. So we'll be leaning on him a lot today in terms of what he thinks about Joby and where they're going and maybe what we should do. We've got Dylan. He's Archer's biggest bull, but he's just a big fan of the eVTOL space and has a lot of knowledge that we're going to go through and discuss. And then last but not least is Mark, private pilot, an aerospace engineer, and yeah, he's here for the technical side of things and just giving
fan
us
favorite
and in bad need of a new camera.
So without any further ado, then, so how's your week going, Liam?
Yeah, not too bad. Guys, I am sorry I've let the team down. I was away on vacation in Italy for the past week. I will share a few stories what I have learned over in Italy, how it resonates with the likes of Joby, ACHR, HOVR, and vertical aerospace. Vertical aerospace, I want to actually talk about a little bit today as well. It will, I think some of the guys were killing me last night on Rocket Lab Fan Club that I was going a little bit philosophical, but you will find out why it resonates with the stock market. But no, look, it feels like we're hitting all-time highs left, right, and center across the whole market. S&P's doing its thing. All these speculative stocks are flying up. Look, I've said my biggest position is Rocket Lab, ACHR, and Joby. So yeah, it took a lot not to take a few profits. I was regretting certain decisions I made. I could have taken a little bit of profit, reallocated somewhere else. Look, we'll discuss where we can see it going over the next week. Will there be better opportunities? No, that's about all I have. Dylan, what are we saying, my guy?
About the same. It's been a good week, been a busy work week, but in the eVTOL space, a lot of news, obviously a lot of stock action moving. For me, also with that, trying to get a better understanding of general market caps for companies. So kind of getting an indication where as the stock prices have risen in the eVTOL spaces, just kind of how that has elevated the market cap for the companies and just kind of what each company has behind that to hold that at a net price. And as well, have been taking a look a little bit at some of the charts just to see if there's been open gaps or any areas that you could see a easy algo fill on the way up or down. But yeah, kind of keep it going. But it's been a good week. Glad to be here.
And then Mark, how are we getting on, my guy? Been about a week. We did have a bit of a chat yesterday, but yeah, how are you getting on?
Yeah, I'm getting along really well. Me personally, I was pretty active in the market this week, especially with the volatility, and I was really fortunate that Joby popped when it did because I was basically trading Joby on a daily basis. You just keep looking at that stair step popping up, and I think it's interesting once these stocks start getting above $10. I think you start seeing institutional investors getting in, and you can see that if you look at the volatility, or not the volatility index, but the amount of volume that's now being traded. Just you look out 6 months, and it is extremely popping now once it gets above that $10 mark, which is saying that institutional investors are now getting involved. It'll really pop up every morning, kind of feed back down, and then kind of test the top that it reached in the early morning. So it was a real good week to kind of just play. And I kind of equate it to you're out surfing and just a good set of waves came in, and you were able to catch some good waves. So take advantage of it when we can. But also to Dylan's point, a lot of great news for us to talk about just in this space overall. I think we're right at the beginning of market recognition, and you are only going to see more and more eyes in this space, and those eyes control a lot of money. So it's a good time for everyone to be now start following this space.
So I guess one thing that has sort of led to this rise of Joby is about them confirming that their manufacturing facility has increased in terms of the amount of output they can do per year. So I think at the moment it's gone to 24. So they'll be doing 2 a month for the next year. In terms of the scaling of that, we still seem to be quite a bit off from if we wanted to be going up to the 2000s or what the target is.
Mm-hmm.
And I imagine that that's not going to be 2 or 3 years. That's probably going to have to be maybe like a 5 or 6 years to go, unless there's just at one point it goes exponential. So like in terms of how I'm looking at the moment, obviously we've got a great big pump because of that. But is this a time where we're sitting in the market and like is basically what I'm trying to get at is this the time to take a bit of profit and make sure that you've got some funds to reallocate if it does come back down? I know we've had this discussion many a time where I seem to I'll ride it the whole way up and the whole way back down, and then I'll be kicking myself saying that I said I was going to do it, and then when I get there, I get carried away because I'm starting to look at $20 rather than thinking like sensibly and thinking like we could easily go back the same way that we came.
Yeah, I think if you look at the slope that Joby went up just in the last week, that's not sustainable. And I don't know what the rules are with the SEC, but if I was Joby's CFO, I'd be going to Jobin and saying, hey, if we want to scale up manufacturing in a year or in 6 months, now is the time to take, potentially even take some, dilute some shares some more, and take advantage of just this market sentiment that they have, because that is what's going to be required. I think that you look at their balance sheet and the cash that they have on hand at this point is certainly enough to get them through certification. But if they're going to start scaling up in size, automated fiber placement machines, or scaling up a whole other factory, it's going to cost you another $1 billion. They have their facility in Dayton. That facility they actually purchased, for those that don't notice, they actually purchased an old USPS facility. So they didn't have to build a building, and they are just now retrofitting that building. So where they're at in that stage, there's some people saying that and I'll actually put it in the chat here. It's a really great YouTube it's an hour-long session with this guy named Travis Brooks. He about 4 weeks ago, he did a real good bit for about an hour about Joby, which just really instills a lot of confidence. So I'll put this in the chat so we can share it with everybody else. But to his point, it's going to cost a lot. There will be a lot of CapEx that Joby or Archer or any of these companies are going to have to spend if they're going to scale. So there's 2 points to that. One, it's going to cost them some capital to do it. But when we see that in the balance sheet, it'll actually be a good sign that they are following through with their plan to scale up. It's similar to like you see all these companies right now spending on CapEx for AI, and just how much money tech companies need to spend. Nobody is batting an eye at the CapEx that they're spending. They're actually looking at it as a positive for growth in the future. So I'll shut up about that and let everyone else speak. Sorry.
No, I want to jump in about Travis Brooks there. It was only when you said his name, Mark, this come as a surprise to you. I've actually been speaking to Travis Brooks since when? July 9th. Travis is going to come on one of our streams and speak to us.
Fantastic.
Anyone that doesn't know Travis, make sure to follow at @TB_Travis, and he's under the username Let's Talk Joby. Guys, I have been on vacation for the last week, and this is where I want to address Reece's question there. So, my biggest I'm not going to say bear case, but my biggest fear with the VTOLs was their ability to scale up quick enough with some of these contracts they were pulling out left, right, and center, saying they're going to be in the Olympics and they're going to be in New York and then they're going to be in the United Arab Emirates. But I've had a complete rethink about my whole thoughts around the eVTOL industry. So I'll bring you back. I took a climb up Mount Vesuvius, and for any of you guys that don't know, Mount Vesuvius is one of the most active deadly volcanoes in the world. When I got up to the top, I did ask the tour guide, what's the chance of this erupting again? Is it definitely going to erupt again? And this is where we can look straight back at the stock market and go, will a pullback occur? Do we think a pullback is going to occur? Look, the tour guide said to me that it is 99.99% chance of erupting again. And how catastrophic would that be? Well, in 79 AD, it did wipe out Pompeii, put it under 25 feet worth of ash. I was staying in a city called Naples. Naples is home to around 3 million people. When Vesuvius erupts again, it's going to flatten the city, and anyone that doesn't get out quick enough will get covered in ash. So, it's like sitting at the top of Vesuvius now. We could flee, we could sell off, take a little bit of profit. But it's like selling a home in Naples prematurely when there's no guarantee that this pullback is going to happen at this stage. For any long-term investor, if you are extremely long-term, just be careful how much profit you take. You don't want to get stuck if we push forward again another, look, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but if we push forward another 10, 20%, and next thing you're trying to find a new entry point. Again, as Mark said, it has been popping off at an unsustainable rate. I couldn't imagine that we're going to go much higher. I think the buyers are now exhausted. What am I doing? I did have a chat with Reece on Friday on about portfolio allocation and should I trim off a little bit and reallocate in places like Tesla. Look, haven't done anything. Am I doing anything? If Joby goes up much more, I will be trimming off the top. I just want to put that out there. I want to be honest about it. Dylan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so yeah, and to your point, Liam, as we always want to be honest, for Joby, I know I come as more of the Archer bull, and to my portfolio, the shares would indicate that. But I was actually thinking back over probably the course of the last 6 months to a year, and just kind of doing napkin math in my head over how many shares of Joby I may have held over that time, and kind of sold off general 10-20% pops as well. So. Yeah, to be transparent, as of today, I am not a Joby shareholder. I did take advantage of the pump that was brought in. And for me, again, it's not about timing the market or finding a better entry opportunity, but for me, I just felt like the position I had, for me, it just wasn't a sustainable position, and maybe reallocating those funds was the better move for my portfolio. So I did trim on the Joby. Looking at the chart, and this is not financial advice, as I'm not a TA expert. But if you do look at the 1 days in the charts, you can find a gap at about the 14, starts at 1439, and then goes down to 1408. So just in the algo sense, we'll see if the words come true. Could possibly get an algo gap down fill in that range. But yeah, it was a quick rise for Joby, but in that as well, kind of my hindsight 2020 50/50. I was like, well, even as Joby was running and Archer was stagnant for a day or two, maybe I should load a little bit more on some of the other eVTOLs, like Archer, maybe another one as kind of that all
Mhm.
ship, the tide rises all ships kind of scenario.
Mhm.
So we did see a bit of momentum coming after that. So yeah, with Joby, still interested to see what the company is doing, but did take advantage of the rise up in the stock price.
Reece, I think we should jump straight across to the comments here, because they are starting to fill up a little bit. Hook them, hi brotherhood. Hook them, great support as always. Jump into my DMs again. I haven't spoken to you in a while, but yeah, jump into my DMs again. Jess De Silva, what's up, dogs? Absolutely great, my guy. Sitting at all-time highs. Do you know what? We all look like great investors when the market's green. I'm on OS. Hi, guys. My guy, you know what? Keep pumping them Joby Notch videos out. We support all eVTOL creators. Absolutely love your content and keep it going. So, Vaccine C says, I just want to let anyone know if you take profits or change positions in USA, all I know, understand tax lots and capital gains, and it is very similar in the UK and Ireland. Guys, do you know anything else about any other countries? I think we're pretty
sure
across the board.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure it's the same in most countries, except for
and
obviously the Middle East.
We'll all go after Saudi or something like that.
Yeah, and to that, it always becomes a mental game where, if you are selling, and if 30% of that is going to be a capital gains tax that you're going to end up paying. Again, this is just the quick napkin math, but if I'm going to find a reentry, if I'm allocating those funds back in, well, now I'm having to pay 30% of those profits off in taxes. So really, what is that dip opportunity that you really want to get back into? But I do think as the long-term shareholder, so Reece, I kind of smile when you talk about riding it up and riding it down. Because again, for me in the eVTOL space, most of the positions I hold are for the 5-10 year, the longevity of these companies. So, it's kind of nice to cheerlead, as it goes up and, sinking our sorrows as the days, it might come down a little bit. But one other thing that I was happy for investors and just kind of curious and, again, not about how many shares or the price of them, but what I like is that since the charts go back to 2021, if there was any very early investors into Joby, it seems like we are breaking above the ranges in which they would have had to buy in the 21 and 20 year 2021 and year 2022. So yeah, just curious if anybody in the chat maybe also has been holding since back then, and maybe any decisions they made as they've kind of been holding on to the eVTOL stocks in that range, and now that we're getting at it or above it, whether it brings confidence or wants them to sell into that strength.
That's made me actually think, Dylan, how long have you been holding ACHR for? I don't know if I ever asked you that.
Well, my retail journey started really January of 2024, and I would say my first really shares of Archer probably came in, I would call it late spring of 24. There was a little bit in and out, reallocating funds off some of the pops that it came, but really the position in which I hold now, I would say summer of 24 would be where the buy and hold, and then accumulation continued.
Does that match in when our channel sort of started? June?
It seems about, because I was probably buying, looking for information and wasn't finding, and the little Hustle Brothers,
So,
had 1,
Dylan,
2, 3 videos. Yeah,
a good percentage of your positions in Archer then are now termed long terms. Is it long term?
yeah. The position I hold in Archer is going to be completely long term, unless something fundamentally I find is breaking with the company. Those shares are not for sale. But yeah, of course, keeping a watch on the company if there was a reason to have the shares for sale. But yeah, those are going to be a long term hold.
I got you.
Yeah, thanks for
I asked the question simply because if you do want to take money off now, you hold something for a year, your capital gains gets cut in half. So
interesting.
because a long term capital gains is if you've held an equity for over a year, it goes to a long-term capital gains, and that's only a 15% tax.
Oh,
At,
wow.
as where I think it's 28 or 30%. If there's someone in the chat that's an accountant, can check me on that. But it's you'll only pay 15% after an equity you've held for a year. So
Thank you,
something
Mark.
to think about
Yeah,
as well,
absolutely. Yeah,
because then that can
no,
change
thank
your
you.
calculus to be like, hey, all
Yes.
right, I can take all this stuff that I've held for a year,
Sure.
and if it has a pullback, and then now you've got your re-entry point.
I appreciate that. Now I'm going to put that down in my notes. Thank you, Mark. No, that's awesome.
And then iManOS says, good point, Mark. They may go for dilution. Note that Archer did and pumped after I only sold my calls. And then Vaccine C said, I'd love a dilution event. Perfect re-entry. I trimmed my initial capital for Joby and I'm surfing on my gains.
Good job. Congrats, Fast CNC.
That's great.
John Smith says, what is Mark's bigger conviction, Archer or Joby, and why? I think I know the answer to this one.
What's your question? What do you think?
Joby, 100%.
Yeah,
I was going to guess. Yeah.
From a design perspective and just overall operational philosophy, I think that Joby and HOVR have the best designs in all of the space. I'm not a big fan of the pylon and your rotors attached to pylons, where half of your rotors are going to be not producing, that aren't going to be giving you any forward thrust. So I'm a much bigger advocate of Joby at this point, just because of their design. But I also believe Joby is further along in their certification process. I've said this, and I'll keep saying it on this podcast, that I think Joby keeps delivering results, and a lot of times you're getting hope from Archer. They're delivering hope. Not to say that Archer isn't still going to deliver and that they are going to get across the finish line, because I believe they both are. I believe they both have the capital to do it. But from a design perspective, when you start seeing both of these aircraft competing in the market, you're going to see I think you'll see Joby Hussein Bolt in the it'll start pulling away in the dash. So, but that's my opinion as well.
Chat, do let me know. I love to test this every so often just to see people changing their minds. Are we getting more Archer followers? Are we getting more Joby followers? Guys, what are you more bullish on, Archer or Joby? Dylan, you still very highly convinced in Archer?
I'll tell you this. The reason I'm still, or my conviction is still that Archer will get to the finish line. Again, not saying in the first or second place in that, but still conviction of them being to the finish line is, they may over PR us, but I do look at what the PR is and what's going out. So even if it's something as simple as an update of them at the Olympic headquarters, meeting and continuing that conversation. So it's just good to see them keep their footsteps and their footprint inside the LA Olympics. So loving that. And then also something, and maybe I'll throw this one back to you, Liam, as a big Rocket Lab enthusiast. I didn't get as much out of the podcast that I was hoping for, but Adam was on a fireside chat with Ashley Vance. See that smile. The previous gentleman that was interviewed prior to Adam was Palmer Luckey. So, just kind of having that lead in from Andrew, and then with Adam following that up, again, with the partnership into Andrew, still seeing big opportunities. And I think for me, I'm looking at the defense front being one of the first to bring in revenue. And I don't know if it can make the company profitable. I mean, I'd have to go deeper into the books and see how many of the units would have to be sold before we're actually reaching profitability. But I do think that the government opens up a door for the DoD contract revenue. So kind of those bits and pieces. And then just want to kind of throw in that in the past week, as my Joby spreadsheet, I am about 75 filing forms deep. So I kind of did the inverse with Joby. So I started from day one with Joby. So it's been interesting to kind of see the uh, Reinvent Technology Partners, the SPAC that they actually opened up and merged with. And so I kind of am going back, kind of inverse that I did with Archer. So Joby, try not to do too many filing forms so I can catch up. I got about 375 more to go, but we're plowing along them. But how did you feel, Liam, on the opportunity that Ashley gave to Adam and having him up on stage for that chat?
Yeah, so guys, why you notice me smile there, Ashley Vance is going to be on our channel in the next month. We're going to be speaking to him at Rocket Lab. But if that's something you guys be very interested in, having Ashley back on and speaking everything Archer and what you found out about Archer from Adam Goldstein, we can organize that 100%. One thing about Ashley, he fires from the hip. He will tell you everything, whether it was in the recorded interview or it was prior to the interview or after the interview. He'll tell you everything. So no, I can't wait to speak to Ashley. In regards to Adam speaking to him, look, I'm still at that stage with Archer at the moment. I'm just so, I don't know, head fried. Is it PR until we can start getting the ball moving into production? The only thing that really does make me hold on a little bit with Archer is Kathy Wood. Kathy Wood has now made Archer her 10th largest position in ARKK. She honestly believes that Archer going forward, the same with Joby themselves, you can go with the same philosophy. But you know, Kathy is mad bullish on Tesla. We're all bullish here on Tesla and full self-driving. And they say the likes of an Uber can transport you around for about $2 per mile. So yes, it's still cheaper than an eVTOL, but however, the full self-driving will knock that down to about 20 cents per mile. Now, you're going to go to me, well, why would you pay to go in a air taxi? Well, the reason why is because at 20 cents per mile, you're now cheaper than public transport. So everyone and their cousin are going to want to get in a full self-driving Tesla because they don't only not have to interact with people. People are so antisocial lately, but they don't have to interact with people. It'll drop them to their doorstep, and it also gives them the benefit of being able to rent out their full self-driving car. But what's the problem with this? Well, you're increasing the amount of demand for full self-driving cars. If you increase the amount of demand, all that's going to happen there is Tesla are going to increase the supply. Now, the problem is when you increase the supply for Tesla, our roads can only hold so many cars. You're going to get massive, massive congestion. And you guys are going to say build more roads. Well, how are we going to start building more roads around New York City? I don't want to even start naming out cities over there because I'm going to get them wrong. But you can't build roads. Like, there's just no space to build more and more roads around the congested spaces. So you have two options. You can either go down into the ground, which Elon's doing with the Boring Company, or you can go up into the air. The eVTOLs, this is what is going to give rise to mass eVTOLs. You notice technology-wise, I was looking back at the Romans, and if you look, I was looking at some of the flooring, and they call it fish scale tiling. They use in the flooring and they use them in the bathrooms, and we still use them to this day. And why have we not developed a better method? Because there's no pressure for us to develop a better method. That is tried and tested, and it works. Why have we been using cars for the last 100 years? Because it's tried and tested, and there's no reason to come away from them. We are now finding a reason to come away from them because there's too much congestion and not enough space. eVTOL sort that problem. And when you have a solution to the problem, that's where big capital starts coming into it. Reece, what are your thoughts?
No, I think you've really laid that out perfectly. And that was mainly the reason why I kind of believed in the eVTOL so much. Because like basically we're over here in London, very busy. If you could knock 30 minutes off a journey, I know some people will say, well, it's not feasible for everyone to do it. But I can guarantee you, if it was an hour and a half journey and you can get it done in 30 minutes or 45 minutes, like people will pay a premium if they've had a long day at work, they want to get home, and all they have to do is pay for the price of a taxi or air taxi. That's the same as a London cab. I know for a fact there will be people that will do it. So there will be that demand. And then if we do sort of maybe go through with that thesis of the full self-driving model, you can imagine that if everyone's like renting out their car and it's now cheaper than an Uber, you could see a lot of people going down the route of getting a full self-drive taxi or the robo taxis that Elon's doing. But yeah, it's going to, as I said, I think this is a huge space, and I think it'll be in all the big cities that will need it.
And you've sort of hit a point there where you're saying about the cheapness of it. I don't even think they need to do it extremely cheap. And if anything, I would prefer them to do it at a premium price. I am a little bit hesitant when they say we're going to do it at the price of black cab also, or a yellow taxi, because why not just start with the premium? That's exactly what Tesla done.
Agreed.
And people will pay it. People pay for convenience. Like, why would you not get on a bus all the time? And why do taxis exist if you're just going on pure cheapness? Or if you're really stuck, why don't you just cycle everywhere? Or walk everywhere? In the likes of London, it'd probably be as quick for you to cycle to work than it would be to wait in a cab.
Because it's too much effort. It'd be too much effort. It'd take too long. Or you can just get on a train, or you could get 4 buses or whatever. But yeah, you like.
And then there's another philosophy behind it. Now, people are going to get so used to these full self-driving cars with no people in it. So people are going to become even more antisocial than they already are. They won't like people in their vehicles with them. And this is where the whole, we're looking ahead again. And this is, it could be 10 years down the line or so. But the fully autonomous air taxis, they will be a big uptake on them because people will prefer to travel by your air taxi rather than getting in your manned helicopter or so.
Yeah, I agreed. I think that's what, obviously the cost as well will be going down because they won't have to have a pilot, and then you can get an extra seat because there's no longer a pilot there. So it'll be interesting to see where they go. But Dylan, sorry, what were you saying there?
Oh, no, I'm sorry, Reece, and maybe Mark can kind of tail off this. And again, as the use cases grow, either the battery tech or we kind of really nail down whether these are going to be hybrid powertrains or full EV powertrains, kind of in the 5 to 7 year scope on it. Just going off again, the laborious drive that was, I do say only 6.5 hours because it's really not that bad. And I was only driving 2.5 of it. If you hypothetically, if you had the midnight that had 1,000-pound payload, so we're talking 4 adults and some carry-on luggage, for me, with having me, my wife, and 1 son, with him weighing a bit less, just kind of curious if that payload opportunity would add the opportunity for us to kind of have that luggage, so you kind of get the range with kind of, again, and I think kind of question to you, Mark, as well, is like, whether it's a private plane, and I believe on a private jet, I've never taken one, but is there some weight accountability that has to go in from the passengers traveling so that they know that the fuel that they put on that plane is going to be able to sustain the flight as well?
So, yeah, generally, any airplane that you get on nowadays, obviously, an airliner is much more massive. It can carry much more weight,
Okay.
and have much better weight distribution. But we'll take my airplane for example. It's a 4-seat Mooney. The airplane has specific operating specifications that you don't deviate out of. So if you have so much, and the airplane is tested and certified to max fuel capability. So if you are or fully loaded, so when you look at all of the numbers that the airplane has in its pilot operating handbook, those are normally based off of a fully loaded airplane. And you have a weight imbalance, and you have to perform a weight imbalance for every flight, or you have to, the pilot in command. So if I go flying, and it's my airplane, I can't go throw 300 pounds in the tail and then
Oh,
have
I'm out.
what's it? Yeah, exactly. Liam's gonna have to be sitting next to me. Uh, uh, so you have to know where you're going to be placing your weight, and it'll be the same situation for
Okay.
these aircraft as well. But to your point, and I want to just touch on this. My bit on this is just where the world in general at a macro scale is going in the next 5 years.
Mm.
And if you listen to what Travis Brooks had to say, and I agree with him, human mobility is changing. We've had roads since the Romans, and nothing has really changed. We have air travel in the last 100 years,
Mhm.
but it's actually the select few get to use that, or it's really a privilege, and there's a good cost to use that. Um, you know, the lifestyle that I'm able to live, I live right next to the airport where I keep my airplane, and I've put in the time and investment to become a pilot, and get a pilot and buy a plane and just have that have that type of lifestyle. But I own a house. I live in Savannah. I live south of Savannah, Georgia. I own a house in Western North Carolina. To drive that is 5 hours. So if I want to come up on the weekend, I lose a day sitting in the seat driving back and forth on the roadway. In my airplane, I was planning, we were talking about maybe doing a podcast on Friday. We weren't able to do it, but I stuck around. I didn't leave till 6 o'clock at night. And I literally just went over to drove the mile over to the airport, pulled the plane out, loaded it up, and I was wheels up within 15 minutes. And then, pilots are lazy. I flipped the autopilot on. I put the course in the GPS, and I flipped on my music, and I listened to U2 for the next hour and a half as I was, en route. And to that point, it's a huge sky. Like, I flew across 3 states, and I didn't see a single airplane the entire flight. I mean, I could see them on my iPad. I knew they were out there, but it's an ocean up above us of air. And so, to the point that human mobility, we have this opportunity right now how human mobility is going to be completely transformed with eVTOLs. And that, right now they're going to be very regional, but theoretically, an eVTOL could pick me up at my house or in my neighborhood and then fly me to work into Savannah, which I'm 45 minutes driving every day back, each one way. An eVTOL can deliver me in 6 or probably 10 minutes, because it takes 10 minutes to fly that in my airplane. And if you look at everything that at least I know Joby's doing, how they are on the side, not only are they developing the aircraft itself, but they're also developing the infrastructure for, because they purchased Uber Elevate back in like 2021 or something. They own that IP, and they have been developing that for the last couple of years. So what you're seeing in Dubai is them now testing that out. They're, those are, and they're only going to be growing that more and more. So to sum that up, I think that the lifestyle that I get to live, where I could hop in my airplane and be 3 states away um, in a couple of hours, or in just within a few hours, and I had to do nothing to do it. That is what the mass is going to be able to experience
Mm-hmm.
in the next, I would say 5 years, where it's going to be like, hey, I want to get up in we'll call it an HEVTOL, because I do believe most of them are going to go, once they start seeing the use cases of these aircraft, they're going to go hybrid, so that it'll be much more like a hover, so the ranges can be much greater. And now you'll be able to fly literally from London to up to Scotland, or you will be able to fly from Scotland over to Ireland. I really believe that you will see that and they're going to scale these aircraft larger too. They are right now, they're doing them all as 4-seaters. There is no reason that they can't scale them a bit bigger to where you could have a 6 to 8 seat or 8 passenger. Um, and when they do that, now you could take, your family could go, and you could bring your gold bullion with you too if you wanted to. Um, so, in terms of just the growth potential, and this is what analysts are now starting to say, is that the growth potential of this space can be $1 trillion. So if you start looking at market caps today, and the beauty of that is, if you're going to be a player in this space, you got two options of getting there. You either have to do what Joby and ACHR and everyone's doing right now and certify a craft, or you're going to be like an Elon Musk and buy one of them out and just do a merger and acquisition.
Hmm.
Either of those situations is going to be great for a stock investor, because I just believe that in the next we're right at the beginning. You're seeing the stock prices pop. They could come down, and I think, like I said earlier in the cast, things have shot up really, really quick. There could be some corrections, but if you're long, I don't think you're not gonna be wrong to get involved right now. Like what was Rocket Lab just 3 weeks ago, or 5-6 weeks ago? It was $15 to $20,
Yeah,
$25.
20, yeah, 16, yeah.
So, and we were thinking then, oh my gosh, it's okay, it's not going the other direction, it's turned around, and it has just taken off. So, someone had posted in the cast, or in the comments, what do they think the market cap will be once they get certified? Once they do get certified, obviously they have to prove that they can be revenue generating. But again, the first company that crosses the finish line and starts generating revenue flights, and the world starts to see just how cool this technology is, everyone's going to want to be a part of it. It's like the difference, in my opinion, it's the difference between the light bulb to whale oil lamps. And I'm that much of a believer in it. So,
And you've made a very good point there with light bulbs versus your oil lamps. And we say the analysts are projecting $1 trillion valuation on it, but it's so hard to value this because it's never been done before. They're more or less trying to smash together between your typical passenger airline and your Ubers, and there's just so much more to it. No one could have imagined how much light bulbs themselves would have taken off. Same with the likes of your Optimus. The guys now cannot predict how big Optimus is going to get.
There's not a financial model for it.
Yeah, going back to Rome, they were all horse and cart, and the pressure behind them was to breed the fastest horse, to breed the strongest horse. And if I told them I could put them on a platform and it has 4 wheels on it and drive forward, they would say, you're absolutely mad. There's no way that could ever happen. And I'd be able to put fuel in it, and I'd be able to travel 200-300 miles. They'd say that's impossible. You'd need to build the infrastructure. You'd need to be able to refuel these. Guys, we've done it before. We've done it so many times. This is just a new adaptation of transportation. Mark, you did touch on something about hybrid aircraft, and one of our favorites is Horizon. Horizon, or as many of you guys know it here as HOVR, them and Zero Avia have announced plans to explore hydrogen eVTOL propulsion. How do you feel about that? Are you bullish on a hydrogen model? I think we spoke about this before. You did say it is quite safe. It's not like a rocket where it could just blow up in one go.
Yeah. If you mix hydrogen with oxygen, you have an explosion. It comes down to the ratios at which they're mixed. The same thing, like an acetylene torch. If you just have acetylene all by itself and you light it off, the acetylene is only going to burn with the immediate oxygen in the air that it's surrounded, and it's a really nasty burning flame. It's really interesting. People always talk about the Hindenburg and that the burning of the Hindenburg, oh, it was hydrogen, it was so horrible. What was actually burning was the skin of the Hindenburg. It wasn't, I mean, obviously the hydrogen was contributing to it, but the biggest of the flame was the skin, was the skin that they used to build the thing. And also that was what, the 1920s or the 1930s. I mean, we've come kind of a long way since then. We went to the moon on hydrogen fuel cells. They can put out an enormous amount of power. So yes, I think that you will see, and to the point, when HOVR announced this week that they are teaming with Zero Avia, I immediately bought. I'll admit, I bought 10,000 shares. I was just like, okay, this is my entry point. Because, and another topic, I just went on HOVR's or New Horizons website. I looked just 4 months or 3 months ago, or not even that, probably like 6 weeks ago. They're under their careers page of how many job openings they had. They had 3. Now they have like 20, and it's for lead engineer for propulsion, lead engineer for aerostructures. Horizon is starting to get the capital to ramp up for their Corvallis aircraft, their full size aircraft that they're going to bring to market. And now with teaming or the agreement they're having with Zero Avia, and a little bit of people in the chat, Zero Avia is developing a hydrogen powered, or is basically developing a hydrogen power plant. And if it's my understanding, it's a fuel cell that then runs an electric motor. So that configuration right there could immediately just be plug and played into any one of these eVTOLs, and now you have a hybrid configuration. Joby's demonstrated it. Obviously, ACHR and Anduril are discussing that they want that as well. But the fact that you see HOVR teaming with a company which has already done flight testing with a hybrid configuration running on hydrogen, and not only are they developing the power plant, but they're also developing the hydrogen infrastructure too, of how you'll store your hydrogen. I think that bodes very positive for anything that would be military sales starting out. And then hydrogen is easy to make if you got the power to do it. So if we go in, if in 5 to 10 years, we've got nuclear power plants and solar plants and governments and countries themselves take on the initiative to really start ramping up power production, you can make hydrogen as well. And if you can do it clean, then that is good for the environment, because of course a fuel cell I believe it only craps out water.
And again, going back to supply and demand, with all these electric vehicles going around, from your full self-driving to the mass adoption of eVTOLs, you need massive abilities to be able to generate electricity. I'm not saying it can't be done. Of course, it can be done, but this is why the adaptation to other sources like hydrogen, I believe, is really important. I don't
I
think
agree.
we're just going to be on a world full of electricity. But look,
I mean, this gets very idealistic, but as a species, if not the United, if mankind decided we wanted to stop fighting each other and developing nuclear weapons and everything, we could then change all of that effort to actually just generating clean power that could actually scrub carbon out of the atmosphere, and you can have clean vehicles. Like I believe, as much as Musk feels that we can terraform Mars, well, we can also just help out our own fishbowl that we're all living in as well.
well,
But
I
it will
believe
all
it'd be
come down to
harder
power,
to terraform Mars. Surely it'd be harder to terraform Mars than it would be to fix
without
your
a
own
doubt.
planet.
Without a doubt, yes. That's the fundamental. Musk views mankind as the next step as a species. Is can we be among the planets? Of course, Musk believes in, I think, cleaning up our environment as well. If you look at just his initiatives of Tesla, he wanted to do, he's an enormous advocate of solar. Says, look, if we have plenty of, if we just went fully solar, we could generate enough power that we would need. To that point, he's right, but I believe there's a myriad of power generation. But at the end of the day, all things are possible if you have the power to do it. Everything comes back to energy. If we have an abundance of energy, we can just start picking and choosing the really, really cool shit we want to do as a species.
Reece, get them solar panels ordered. We need to just start stacking up.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Patrick Ford on the comment though, you are right. A year ago, Joby already demonstrated I believe it was at their facility just right on the coast in California, in San Marino. They did a hydrogen powered S4, and they flew for the equivalent. They basically just did a racetrack around the airport, but they flew for something like 5 or 6 hours.
Mhm.
And if you go back and you look at Joby's stock price, it shot up like crazy at that time. So you're right; it's already been demonstrated, and this is the next step too. Like we talk about the stock price going up, there is nothing that can't be said that in a week or in a month or right before earnings or right after earnings, the U.S. government comes out and says, "Hey, we're going to buy 200 Jobies," and because they've already demonstrated their hydrogen power. I read that 2 Jobies have been delivered already to Edwards Air Force Base, and now 2 more Jobies, if they haven't already, they're getting delivered to MacDill Air Force Base. And out of curiosity, I went and looked at what squadrons are at MacDill. They're pretty much like depot type stuff and like refueling, but it's also CENTCOM. So it's pretty much, like those that make very, very big decisions about programs of record, are at MacDill. So just demonstrating these capabilities that Joby could be able to do, with their S4, it's only going to get more recognition. And I think both Archer and Joby are ripe for the taking because they're so far along in their development. They don't need to get TC, and this is also important to know. You don't need to have a type certification to fly in the military. Like all the aircraft that are flying in the military, they have passed different standards, and that the government sets on the contract for them. But anything that would be where they're at already in through TC testing would be like typically much further ahead than what the government would have to select to actually just start purchasing. And that in itself could just be like, all right, we just got a contract for 200 aircraft at. And the other thing too is like they could sell them to the government for probably a bit higher price than what the public is going to have to pay, or what they're going to be producing them at. So again, this space, in my opinion, is only going to grow from both the commercial side, which they're marching down that road, but then on the government side too. Once the government sees something nice, they're going to want a part of it as well.
Do you know, when we were speaking to Brandon, and he was saying about the use cases in the likes of the military, but also in the likes of cargo and that, I really do see HOVR being a prime candidate for a government type of vehicle. Now, the only thing about it, would there be restrictions because they're Canadian based?
So in order to do that, they would just have to have an office in the United States. They would have to, like, Rocket Lab is originally from New Zealand, correct?
Yeah.
They would have to open up a U.S. base. Perfect example is Bombardier sells to the U.S. government. They do.
Wallops Island, and now they're able to do haste launch missions for the US government.
Yeah. So you need to just have an office that operates, and you need to have a company that is based in the United States. So all Hover would have to do is create a subsidiary operating in the United States, and then everything is done through that subsidiary. But it could still, be directly linked to, its parent company.
Guys, I do like to be honest here with you. I have reached out to Brandon and the team today, so hopefully we'll get a response pretty soon. Brandon's great. They do come back pretty quickly. You've seen him flying around our comments as soon as they got our email last time, so no, they are on the ball. This is a good one for Dylan now. Now, I don't know, have you seen this or not? Casey Dean said, did you guys see the alert this week of an unusual call option on ACHR expiring in mid-August and an unusual put option on Joby expiring July 25th? And if so, how do you interpret that? I thought Joby may have a stock offering after their recent run-up in share price.
I guess specifically to the question, no, being honest, I know a little bit about options trading, but following in the options chain, I would be telling you BS if I was telling you I would know how to track that. So I don't want to say that I do. Just through some other companies that have high volume with inside of the option chains, they can be smoke signals, but do be careful. I would say when you're just looking at an options chain to solely place your bets with inside of the companies, as options can always you can extend the life out on an options contract. So I mean, there could be something that changes, which could have people open or close those options contracts as well. But yeah, happy to dig in and look more into what may be causing some volatility around those around those companies with inside of the stock prices and then around those dates. So yeah, send those over in the chat afterwards as well. I'd be happy to take a look at some general cause of the what's and whys on that. But yeah, interesting thought though. You would assume then that something would be popping on the Archer side and the put would be a down. So you would be assuming that there would be some sort of drop in Joby stock price. So, but I'd have to look into the what's and whys.
Oh, thank you so much for that, Dylan. And then Justice says, no one talks about Tesla autopilot liability for individuals. You call BS on the plan made by Tesla. Respectfully, I disagree. I think Tesla is going to absolutely smash it. I'm on OS. Interesting how different Adam and Joe Ben are. Adam's a showman. Joe Ben's dedication knowledge is incredible. Respect. Enjoy to listen to Bat Signal, and we will make America.
Well, and two, from the Ashley Vance interview, and I know that Adam speaking can maybe like noise on a chalkboard to some Joby investors or some people in the eVTOL space. But I think it is interesting to look at the words or to hear the words he's saying and really listen into those. And he was even asked by Ashley if he was going to be taking basically the first customer flight. And even Adam himself was kind of like, whoa, 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 that's why we have many test flights. And, it's like, it's interesting to see him up there smile, be confident about his company, but at the same time, kind of have those woes of safety. And for me, as the shareholder, it doesn't scare me off. And I think, again, Adam's always spoke about safety first. So, again, if we are getting a little bit too much PR, I'm sorry for those, that it's not as palatable for. But I do find Adam to be as genuine as maybe he can be in speaking with those, because it would be easy for him to say, "Oh yeah, of course, I'll jump on and be the first one," and all that kind of stuff. But he was transparent in saying, "I'm going to make sure all the testing's right before even I step foot on the midnight." So it was an interesting takeaway.
Yeah, and to that point, I don't want to. I'm not downplaying when I say that Archer is selling
Sure,
hope.
sure.
Show me the results. I'm wanting to see a piloted full transition flight.
Hmm.
I'm wanting to know are they going with 4 rotors or 2 rotors? And the biggest thing is I want a no BS assessment of what is your schedule, and they're not going to tell us their schedule. They're not going to tell us their schedule unless they are going to meet schedule or they're going to be ahead of schedule. Most likely, they're not going to be ahead of schedule. So it's now just going to come down to, are you doing what you have said in the past you're going to do? And that can still be coming. Like I said just a couple minutes ago, like Archer could well be within the realms of saying on the next conference call, "Hey, yeah, we're not going to be certified until right before the Olympics, so that's our new target. Oh, but by the way, we just landed a $3 billion contract with U.S. Air Force in Anduril, and we are now pivoting to the military side while we're co-developing the Midnight." And all of a sudden, the stock is going to just keep going up because they have a whole new. They've just changed. They've pivoted their strategy, kind of similar to you look at what Beta has done now. Beta's come out and said, okay, well we're going to have a little bit different strategy of how they're going to get to market. They're first going to develop a CTOL all electric, and then they will convert that to an eVTOL. I don't know if that's really. I don't know if I really necessarily agree with that, but my point is that I don't want to downplay Adam at all. I think Adam is probably a fantastic CEO with people that I do know in the industry that have worked for him or met him. I mean, he is all in, and this is his company, so of course he's going to be promoting his company. I would be doing the same thing as well. So I think all ships are going to rise in this rising tide, and it doesn't matter. There's so much different avenues of opportunity for these flying craft, and you look at just where where both Joby and Archer are at in their development. They're so much further along than well, they're so much further along than Joby or than HOVR, but HOVR is also just kind of stepping onto the playing field. That I almost think you can't go wrong if you're long.
And I was curious too if Beta, is that a U.S. subsidiary? Would they be able? There was something just was curious at the Paris Air Show. It was interesting to see, and these are just the little things that I kind of smile about, where they had really an open cargo space. It really looked like they were looking
Mm-hmm.
to have that size to both.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'll say
It's the
I'll
market they're
just
going
say
after is cargo. Mm-hmm.
there you go. Yeah, exactly, Mark. So, it's kind of cool to see them even design the aircraft to where, again, I'm going to probably say something wrong here, but where your forklift or pallet is going in directly at this height. And that's exactly where Beta has put their entry and close on their cargo area with inside of their aircraft as well. And they may be doing a bit longer range missions right now. So kind of curious to see where beta starts falling in the eyes of either retail investors or with inside of
Yeah.
the different use cases. And then, Mark, you just kind of made me think of something too, where, if we're having sub 10 aircraft from either of these companies coming out per year till X year, will there have to just be a split of use case per aircraft because at that point we only have so many of the eVTOL type aircraft that are manufactured and usable that can be flown at that time. So, maybe it's something where, again, through the early manufacturing stages, continuing Joby and Archer and to any other eVTOL company that continues to manufacture, continuing to show through those use cases, maybe where they will best perform at. And then also for the company to kind of solidify their lanes within those different use cases as well.
So in terms of use cases, that will come down to just the customer. Of course, for the eVTOLs where you're flying with, where you're moving the public, that use case is being designed and type certified too. That's what Joby's doing, and that's what Archer is doing. The let's move humans around. Immediately, you could immediately you could certify both of these aircraft, and then you could immediately do what's called an STC, a supplemental type certificate. And this happens all the time when an original airplane gets designed, say 3 or 4 years down the road, you want to do an upgrade. You don't do a full up, you just don't redesign the entire thing. You do what's called an STC, and companies are always doing STCs. It's a supplemental type certificate and that could be used to just change the configuration of the seating. So now an S4 could be a medevac, or it could be used for for hospitals and whatnot. Archer could do exactly the same thing. In terms of changing out power plants, I think what you would see first is like the US government or governments around the world saying, well, we want to have a hydrogen based hybrid that's going to go 500 miles. That is your customer, and they will put the funding into it, and then they will develop that. And then that in itself can be the technology bed. Once that's proven out and is operational and working, you could immediately then do an STC for your commercial side. And then that will cross pollinate over. And now you've gone from, all right, I'm going to get in my eVTOL and get on the roof in Manhattan, and it's going to take me all the way down to DC and land me on the mall. So.
And then Vassian C says, I'm afraid to understand options more. It's too tempting, and I'm doing well enough with missionary trading.
Understandable. And it's right now
spoken like a true machinist.
Yeah, to anybody that gets into the options is not any financial advice on this, but there were some real option opportunities inside of the eVTOL space. Really last October, November. $5 contracts were being sold for 15 cents. So you were picking up the opportunity to purchase 100 shares of Archer for $4.50 or a $5 contract for literally putting out $15 at that time and having probably about 6 to 8 months of DTE on that options contract. So it's very interesting to see how the same options that one may have been looking at back in the late part of the last year, how much it is costing to secure those option contracts nowadays. So it's interesting, but good to see for the industry as a whole.
Yes. A lot of people use options as a strategy to hedge as well. Let's say right now you have this really large run up, and you can say, all right, I'm going to do a put option. I'm going to buy a couple of put options back at $8, so that if it does come falling all the way back down, you've hedged that that option is going to go up in value, which you could then execute out of, and that is basically paid for your losses. It's also why you see a lot of, you hear people talk about short squeezes, and that is where there's a lot of short interest in a stock. So, investors or whoever they're expecting the stock to go down, they're hoping for the stock to go down. And then when the stock starts going the opposite direction, they have to cover that. So they have to now start buying the stock, and that is so that they don't lose their ass on that short position. It's the antithesis of what was it a couple years ago? I can't think of the name. GameStop.
The GameStop
Oh,
one. Yeah,
that
sure.
GameStop was shorted by hedge funds, and literally those hedge funds went out of business because of. I mean, it's a really fascinating thing if you look at just hedge funds don't necessarily have the control that they used to have anymore because you're getting so much more retail investors getting in the space, and they can be like we retail investors are starting to have pull.
And for better or worse, I know that Archer, XRP, GameStop, there was a lot of moving parts inside of hedge funds and kind of the dark pool trading. So Archer was actually one that was in a lot of those kind of combination short videos. I would say back last summer. I know I'll pull up the percentage. I would say that Archer still probably has a higher short percentage on it than Joby. So again, could go either way. Hopefully for us retail investors, Archer continues to prove, and the shorts close out, and continue to ride that momentum up. But yeah, if you are having the short pressure down on it, it's again going to give a possibility of keeping the stock price suppressed until again, the volume comes in to break through those shorts.
And then Anthony said this format is great. People will watch these years from now and be like, whoa, these hustle brothers were smart. We hope so, my guy. Because if not, we'll all be sitting asking Mark for a lift to the train station.
That's
he can fly
us. Well, I have a thought too on something that Reece and Mark kind of spoke on as well, where I don't know if in your guys' areas or towns you have anything called like a slug line. So it's kind of like this ride share where you'll basically commute somewhere that's 15 or 20 minutes from your home. But so living in the Northern Virginia area, it's a lot of transit population. I'm gonna say this word wrong, but anyway, you have a lot of commuters that are doing hour-plus trips a day either to get into DC and work. And you have a lot of people that will take the Northern Virginia money or the DC money and move out further west. So they'll have the hour or two commute time. So what you'll have is these things called a slug line. So you'll go get dropped off, and then there'll be basically a car where you're gonna sit with 3-4 different people that you don't know, and you're passengering down into the Washington, D.C. area, or from like Loudoun to Fairfax or something like that. So that was actually something that was kind of on the tip of my brain. And then as Mark was speaking about maybe scaling up the aircraft, and again, maybe in the 10-year time frame on the early side, I don't know. But yeah, getting the eVTOLs more into those 6 to 8 seater versions, maybe possibly, again, the air taxi network that starts to take away the slug lines. So instead of meeting for the car, you're meeting at the vertiport, and it's going to take you to the general area in the Washington DC landing zone. So possibilities.
I like that thought, not gonna lie. And then Casey Dean says, thanks for answering my question. Was just an alert I saw in the news section on my Schwab account. In each stock's profile, I don't even know how to trade options. Lol. Do you know what?
Okay,
Casey, any questions you ever have, guys, any questions you ever have about eVTOLs, we try and get to as many comments. We always try to get to all the comments, but it's getting to the stage where we will try and get to as many as we can. It's only, if not, we're going to get overrun and we'll just be speaking back and over on top of each other. Anthony says, amen, Mark. And then Patrick said, I read the other day that Archer didn't really deliver their midnight to the military. They just came and took some pictures, and the same aircraft is actually the one they sent to Abu Dhabi.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen that, Reece?
Archer has an agreement with Anduril. What that agreement is, we don't know. So similar to, I believe, like you look at the and I think what you'll see is if Archer meets milestones, Anduril will probably then get more involved. But most likely what's going to happen is Anduril is going to want to just purchase their airframe, and then they'll go and militarize it. So it'll be sales for Archer, but I would expect that they're very, very tight-lipped about what the agreement is, saying that, well, it's obviously privileged information between the two companies, and it is. But I'm sure. I think a lot of it is probably predicated on, or it's based on. Well, you need to get your design finished and show your performance characteristics, and then Anduril will then potentially buy it from them. But I don't believe that. Yeah, again, where Joby is further ahead, you can see Joby testing at Edwards Air Force Base. There's videos of it, we are all going to get. Again, this is what's really exciting about the next couple of weeks, because when earnings calls come about,
Mm-hmm.
I would love to have some questions asked on the conference call of, okay, no BS. Do you have a schedule? How is it coming along? Are you gonna certify next year? I mean, Jobin just came out on Friday. It was on TD Schwab as well, with Market Chatter, and Jobin said they will launch commercialization in Dubai next year. So and then they said in the United States later next year. So that tells me they're getting type certification by next year. And they will be able to do revenue generating flights by the end of next year. And that's fantastic. But if that's the case, I would love to hear Jobin on the conference call say, yes, we've entered phase 4. We are 20% into phase 4, which is TIA testing. Say it, or well, don't.
Be
I
confident.
want to hear it.
Be proud. Be proud.
Yeah. Or if they're not, those will be some telltale signs that, well, maybe they're not as far along as they thought they were.
Well, for me, keep an eye on Savi. I believe from Raymond James. I typically ask really good questions on the conference call.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd have to get, I don't know if it's Cantor Fitzgerald, but the gentleman Bill, he really did ask Adam a pretty straightforward thinker regarding the hybrid powertrain on the last earnings call as well. So agree with you, Mark. Hopefully we'll get some of the tougher analyst questions that really have to pull more than just that opening speech that each CEO, already has pre-planned and is going to give to us.
Yeah, I'm going to just come out and say too, like, I want better than that. I want to hear on the conference call, the question, hey guys, this is Liam from the Hustle Brothers. I want Liam on the conference call, and I want him answering the hard questions.
I agree. Agree.
We said that in like a second ever stream, was it, Reece?
Yeah.
We were going to get you a job in Joby just to present Joe Ben's conference call.
There you go. Yeah.
Then we have Tom. Hello, everyone. Just saw that this live stream was happening.
Hey, Tom.
Yeah, Tom. Honestly, I can promise you, hand on heart, going forward, we will be live every single Sunday for eVTOL Fan Club. We will pin down a time between the 4 of us where at least 3 of us are available. And then eVTOL Weekly, we're pinning down, what do we say, Thursday?
Thursday works good for me. Let's leave it up to people in the chat too. What works best for people? Like 5 o'clock, you're driving home, you want to flip us on and listen to us as we're chatting. Obviously, we don't want you texting questions while you're driving, but or does 4:30 work well? We want to be cognizant to our OG brothers who are, when it's 4:30, it's what, 11:30 in London.
Yeah, 11:30, yeah.
It's 10:30, 11:30. So we want to be somewhat cognizant. We're not going to be doing this at 8 o'clock at night. So otherwise, Liam's going to be three bevies in. Yeah.
So, Miss Me. I don't find Adam genuine. Spoke about building 6 conforming aircraft last year and bashing off the companies before pivoting an incomplete prototype. Joe Ben is genuine though. Do first, talk later. I do agree with do first, talk later. Look, I think Adam is a good salesman. I've always said that from day one. I said he's a good salesman. It doesn't mean he's a crook. I don't believe he's a crook. I do believe he has his Archer's best interest at heart. But I do believe Joe Ben is a more do as you say you're going to do, and then punt the PR out after. Guys, you any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think there's always the possibility as well that he's being fed that they're going to have 6 crafts out by a date from his engineering team, and for one reason or another, it might mean the propellers, it might have been something else that hasn't
But as
materialized.
CEO, would you not want your CEO to be on top of that?
But he might, at the time when they done it, there could have been
yeah.
a discovery afterwards. I'm saying that he's been told this is the date. He's went out and relayed that to everyone, and then they might have discovered, the 4 propellers doesn't work. We have to go to 2, or vice versa, or something else hasn't happened. And because they haven't hit that target, I don't think you can just invalidate him and say he's a bit of a dodgy character.
Yeah.
But because the thing is as well, I think PR wise and getting it out there and doing that salesman side of it, I don't think
he's unbelievable at doing it.
That's what
There's
I mean.
no better man for it.
We just need someone on their engineering side that is the equal and opposite, so that he's just bringing that, they're getting that design over the line, and then when he is
they just need to do a merger.
Yeah. Or if he could do the PR for Joby, I think we'd all be laughing.
Yeah.
Well, and just to that, again, I can get why some people may find Adam and maybe the words that he's speaking or the confidence in the company a little cringy. And that's okay. That's all personal opinion on, what your kind of is that CEO passing your kind of authenticity smell test to you, and that's a great thing to have up. I think that's a great thing when you're putting your retail or your investment dollars and being a retail investor, to really have that confidence in that CEO and what they are saying. And I think my only side point to that would be this day as a retail investor and some of the CEOs, there just seems to be more of a connection to the retail investment base by some of the larger CEOs. So for me, again, you may be hearing more from Adam than you're hearing from, like you said, the chief engineer on what's going on. But I think it would be very tough to know what's going on with inside of the company without having somebody putting their face and their name out there and trying to deliver the most accurate news to the public. So again, I think that's our job, to see if those are smoke screens that are being put up, and if it's just some fluff talk to get them through another quarter, to keep institutional investor eyes on the company. Or again, if there are authentic words that are being said, but maybe just not to the cup of tea in how they're being displayed to you, or kind of feeling like you're being overfed the PR side of it. So, again, I still don't mind that Adam goes out and does the presses that he does. If you take the fireside chat with him on with Ashley, me as the investor, would I rather have him do it or not do it? For me, I'd rather have him do it and see what he has to say. At the Paris Air Show, when he's standing next to Duffy, would I rather have him at the Paris Air Show or not? And Secretary Duffy handing the mic over to Adam? Personally, I'd rather have that happen.
Yeah.
But not to discredit the points that get made about Joby being the more quiet leader within inside of the industry. Nothing wrong with that. So I think if Joby had a PR team anywhere kind of close to what Archer had, because if you look, and just as a quick note, just in case anybody didn't know, The CFO for Archer, Mark Messler, has stepped down for about a year-long bout with medical issues. So Priya Gupta, who has filled in on the last two earnings call, is actually stepping up. So she was interim CFO, so she's now taking on the acting role as CFO. And kind of just to call the spade, when we were listening to Q3, I believe it was, when they were talking about just finishing the Georgia factory, and I think Mark was on that call. They had talked about the whole $65 million. That capital had been put in, and basically, we were done. We were in line with guidance on what we were going to spend. And I believe it was last quarter, Priya was on the call, and there was about around, I have to go check my numbers, but let's say 3.5 to 5.5 million that was overestimated for their spend on that quarter. And then they guided that 5 million of that was for the completion of the Archer facility. So me, as a heavy note taker on Archer, I'm like, whoa, I'm like, 2 quarters ago, you guys already said that the funding was wrapped up. So why are we talking about $5 million more needed inside of Archer's facility just for the completion of the facility? So,
And I
yeah, go for it.
and I want to add to that as well. For that's to build the building. They have an empty. If they spend 60 million to just get the building built, I'll guarantee that is to tool the building. It's going to be $500 million. Like Archer is going to have to spend $500 million in capex to tool up their building. Automated fiber placement machines are really freaking expensive. Tooling for aerospace components for all of your different work build stations is expensive, and it's very, very intensive. From like you're going to go buy the latest and greatest robotic systems, inspection systems. So that is something that we need to see as investors. Again, like I said earlier, it's a good thing. It'll be good if they say, "Hey, we just blew $100 million this quarter on capex, and that went into our Georgia facility." Because then you say, "Oh, okay, yeah, they're rolling in all of the tooling to get this built." If they're not spending capex on their facilities, you'd be like, "All right, where's your money going?" You're not going to be able to scale unless you're spending this money, and it'll be the same for Joby as well. If we start digging into where's your capex for your tooling to build, you'll know. So.
And I have to go back and listen to the advanced thing again, because I've been looking at it now and they're talking about the partnership with Hexel on the carbon fiber. But I swear when he was talking to Ashley, they were talking about, because on the, I believe it was the Q1 call, they were talking about some different IPs that they had required, and there were some general, more strategic partnerships. And I believe Adam had mentioned something about a carbon fiber manufacturing facility, I believe out in California as well, that was maybe acquired by Archer. And it only made me think back to, and I don't know if it will be to this level of sophistication, but from the Rocket Lab community, seeing the 3D carbon fiber printer, and Liam, you tell me if I'm off base here, but the 3D carbon fiber printer that basically layers out for the capsules and such. Which has a lot of that redundancy built in, so it kind of knows if something is off as it's building it out. So I'm definitely interested to see what I need to dig in a little bit more and see what Adam was talking about on stage with that. But I agree with you very much, Mark, where $2 billion in cash. So I would be happy to start hearing about that word, just like you're saying, capex. And what is that capex going to? And I'd love. I'm just throwing around a number, be it 100 to 250 million of capex being spent over the next year to procure these. You'll have the better word, Mark, but basically the interior function, the tooling. Thank you. With inside of that manufacturing facility to ramp up scale of manufacturing. So let's hear that some capex is being spent. I like that.
Yeah, and this goes across all these companies, even HOVR, right? HOVR probably has enough to build their scaled model now, but it's going to be a hand-built airplane. It's their tooling is going to be very simplistic, they're going to be laying up, or they may go outside and just pay someone who can build the jigs for them and build it for their design. But if you're going to get into a manufacturing sense, you're either going to team with something like a GKN, which it's my understanding ACHR is teaming with to build some of their
that sounds
aerostructures.
very familiar. Yep, you're on that.
Yeah, and that's just it. GKN, it builds the fuselage for HondaJet, and they're located in Columbia, South Carolina.
Correct.
Columbia, South Carolina is just a hop, skip, and a jump down I-20 to Covington, so it makes sense. They're close by. You could go visit the facility. That's going to be one good way and an effective way that ACHR can say, all right, we now have fixed one of our scaling issues for manufacturing one of our aerostructures components.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't change the fact that your assembly building, you're going to have to spend a lot of money to get it built up and get it tooled so you can start producing these aircraft.
Agreed.
And then Thomas says, Mark, did you end up watching the Monroe factory tour videos? What were your takeaways?
So Thomas, I've just started watching it. I promise I will have I'll have my opinions at the podcast on Wednesday or Thursday.
And then Jester Silva, until proven wrong, I believe ACHR is nowhere near Joby's progress, not saying this won't be quicker to get once Joby's is given. Anthony then says, may I ask Mark a question? Mark, I'm telling you, you are a fan favorite, my guy. What do you think about HOVR's payments and royalties on the fan on the wing?
So their design, and I've said this before, of all of these eVTOL designs, I think HOVR's is the cleanest. Having your lift fans buried in the wing, buried in the structure, opening that structure up to allow them to operate, and then closing it up to where you have a very nice, clean airplane that flies through the air as what you always want from an aerodynamics purpose, is fascinating. From a patent perspective, it gives them definitely a market advantage. Brandon had said, I believe when he was on this podcast, his team looked at all sorts of different in-wing configurations and how do you transform the wing to where you can keep your fans inside the wing. And there's one other thing that people don't understand too. If you have a ducted fan, it actually gives you about 15% more lift efficiency than having just an open rotor. But if you have a ducted fan out in the open that would rotate, like say a HOVR or say Joby did a ducted fan, it wouldn't work because then the duct would be really efficient for lifting it. But then once you got into flight, the duct actually would create a lot of drag. So the configuration that HOVR has is a very, very efficient configuration. And I think from the patent perspective, as long as it's I mean, of course, the Chinese. This is just it. This is the beauty of the aerospace industry as well. Some other country can go steal it, but are you going to get it certified to be commercially operated where all of your customers are? No, you're not. So if HOVR can get the financing to keep moving forward and the investment to keep moving forward, and I think that they will. I think the space is only going to get more market recognition, and people are going to once this gets to market, people are then going to be like, oh, it's going to be like the personal computer. You know, the Commodore 64 and the first Apple. It was like, okay, yeah, I can do this. All right, now I want the more efficient thing, and you're going to quickly see the market. You're going to start seeing some new novel designs coming up, and HOVR certainly has a very efficient novel design for both lifting capabilities and also flying through the air.
Right. Are you
I'm
able to hear
muted.
me?
I'm
Yeah,
muted.
You left
Sorry,
him
guys.
speechless. You left him speechless.
Sorry, guys.
No, you're good.
Guys, this is one of our biggest live audience we have had in a long, long time. What I want to do to celebrate this, I want to give a free giveaway to 5 people. How to enter this draw? You just have to jump into the comments and tell me, are you bigger on Archer, Joby, HOVR? Literally, all I want to see
Okay.
is Joby, Archer, HOVR. You can't get entered into the draw unless you have commented already. It is completely at random. I can honestly not choose who gets it. And we'll give them 5 minutes to start that out.
Awesome.
Now, then getting down, Francisco, my guy.
Hey.
Do you want to come live with me later? I know you were on vacation, but if you are back, you can come live with me on Rocket Lab. But what are the chances of Archer or Joby being acquired by Boeing or Lockheed? Boeing, I think it's completely out of the question. Don't they have Whisk?
They have Whisk, yeah.
Lockheed, Lockheed. I don't know. I couldn't see it. Could you?
I don't see. Well, Lockheed traditionally has been a fighter manufacturer where they've not been your historical like a helicopter. I could see Bell Helicopter or Textron getting involved. I mean, to that point, Lockheed now owns Sikorsky, so the Sikorsky subsidiary of Lockheed could get involved in this space. I don't think though that I don't see Joby getting acquired. I think Joby is like a Tesla, and unless it was a takeover where they just start buying up all of the shares, then you could see that. But that's also going to be to our benefit. But mergers and acquisition, I would honestly see more an acquisition be on the side of like Musk getting involved and saying, okay, I'm now ready to enter this space, and I don't want to go through a 3-year certification process. So I'm either now just going to become a very large investor in the space and just start dumping money into one of these companies. Um, I would really welcome him to contact Brandon and say, hey, let's start talking, just because I love the design. Uh, but yeah, I mean, Lockheed and Boeing, those are really large. I mean, they're really large they're the largest defense contractors out there. They could get into space, but I've not seen anything at all to that at this point. I think you would actually see like Lockheed getting much more involved in like really small drones where they would be delivering a drone swarm. So you're all of a sudden you're flying an F-35 and it drops out, some sort of something out of its weapons bay, and then from there it deploys 300 drones, and the pilot is managing it up above at 40,000 feet as those drones are going down and doing the dirty work. When it comes to things like the use cases for a Joby or an Archer, I think just Archer and Joby kind of they already have a market advantage where they can sell directly to USAF or the Marines, or just the U.S. government. So we'll see.
Oh, thank you so much for that. Vasanc says, I think the Joe Ben versus Adam comparison is giving me Peter Beck versus Chris Kemp vibes, but not as extreme, hopefully. I can see Joe Ben in Peter. You can't be that mean to Adam. He's not that bad.
I will search Chris Kemp, and I'll get back if I'm seeing some similarities, and hopefully poke some holes in it. But we'll open my eyes if I'm seeing too many. So I appreciate it.
And then we have, what are your thoughts about an ETA for certification? I think this is the age-old question. How long is the length of string?
Yeah.
Mark, have you any sort of estimation whatsoever?
I mean, it is. Jobin came out and said they will be doing flights next year in Dubai. That doesn't mean they have type certification. Dubai's regulatory body could give them all sorts of grants and grants and buy-offs to say, yes, we feel this is safe. So go ahead and start operating in our country. TC with the FAA, I think will be middle to third quarter next year. And for Archer, I'm not going to say. I want to hear more information about if any one of these companies says we are this far along in phase 4, which is TIA testing, then you can make a much better estimation, because it's going to take them 9 months to a year at best if they've started TIA testing. So if they come out and say, yes, we started TIA testing 3 months ago, then just add that to the timeline of they're probably 9 months away or something. If they say we're going to start TIA testing in October, then end of the following year. I would love to see them both get certified next year, though.
Guys, chat's climbing. I'm going to give you, honestly, 2 more minutes to enter. Jump in. Let me know. Are you bigger on Joby, Archer, or HOVR? 5 people will be getting a giveaway. I have a dog barking here. Reece, do you want to take over for a second?
Yeah, no bother. So from Francisco Ramirez, I think this could be a big acquisition for one of the big players. Airbus acquired one of the planes made by Bombardier in 2020. Iron Man
I'd like to speak to
OS.
that too.
Oh, yeah?
Go ahead. I want to speak to that. All
You don't?
right. So
You don't?
yeah, the Airbus acquisition, they bought the C series from Bombardier. Now the C series, Bombardier took an enormous step. There's always been a duopoly between Airbus and Boeing in the mid cabin to large cabin aircraft, and Bombardier came on the scene in the late 2008 2009 and says, we are now going to get into this space where we're going to build an all new airplane that's pretty much going to rival the 737, or its largest variant would have rivaled the 737. And that was the C series. Gorgeous airplane. I've flown on one now. It's phenomenal. And Boeing is really good at deploying its lawyers. And that's exactly what they had done. Bombardier betted the entire farm. Look at their stock price, and you can just see how it tanked when that program started to get into jeopardy. But they got all the way through type certification. The Swiss were their launch customers, and they were getting orders for companies in Europe or countries in Europe, but they were not getting any U.S. orders. And I think it was like 2018, it's probably like 2016. They finally got an order with Delta, and it was huge. It was like the biggest announcement because they broke in to the U.S. market. And shortly after that, Boeing sued Airbus or sued Bombardier, saying that they were dumping their aircraft in the U.S. market, that they were actually selling these aircraft for less than they could produce them for, and which falls into the trade laws and whatnot. And it was to go through 3 different courts systems. Like there's 3 different levels. In the first 2 levels, Boeing had won the case that yes, they're dumping these aircraft on the market. And there were some really large implications. This was back when Trump had just got into office, and the wings were built in Belfast, in Ireland. There was all sorts of just international inputs from governments and whatnot if this program went away. And it was looking like Boeing was going to win the final judgment. And before they did that, Bombardier basically punted and because Bombardier they were running out of money. They were getting all sorts of loans from Canada, from the Canadian government, and the Canadian government was tapping into their own funds for like retirements and whatnot. So they had to pay back the Canadian government. So they pretty much gave that program, like they sold that program to Airbus for $1 billion, just so that they could pay back the Canadian government. And Airbus immediately turned around and said, okay, we are going to build these airplanes in the United States. So then the dumping laws don't apply because they're built in the United States. And now it's the A220. What is the C series aircraft was the C series aircraft, is the Airbus A220. And I've flown on one. It's an amazing airplane. Like, hats off to Bombardier for pretty much just putting 10 years of blood, sweat, and tears into developing the equivalent of a small scale 787, because it's all composite, extremely efficient. It'll kick the pants off of a 737 when it comes into efficiencies. And this is one of my arguments with Boeing is like, quit litigating, just be a better design. Stop being a litigating and buddying up to the government and become a design company again, run by engineers. And look at what has happened to Boeing in the last 5 years. So, like, I think they're going to right the ship, but still, Boeing is like, they call it the lazy bee for a reason. It's just a place where you can like get hired into and then just disappear and collect a paycheck, as where that would never fly at a SpaceX or an Anduril or. So that's the story behind that acquisition. It was kind of more of a, let's say, like Bombardier had to save itself. And in that time, Bombardier sold its train division. They were $10 billion in debt. They sold their train division. They sold the C series division. They said, we are only going to do what is profitable, and that is small private jets. And they're now just a competitor to Gulfstream, selling their private jets, and they're doing very well. To talk about teaming, let's say two Canadian companies teaming up. I mean, Bombardier has had a long history of, they started out building snowmobiles, they built jet skis, they've done all sorts of stuff. It's the industrial powerhouse of Canada. It would be awesome if you saw Bombardier say, hey, we are going to now back HOVR. And we now have all of this manufacturing and engineering prowess. And now, if that happened, I hope you got your stocks, boys, because it's then that would be a huge game changer in itself.
And Francisco said, Elon Musk's well-known saying, prototypes are easy, production is hard. I actually quite like that saying, not going to lie.
Very true. Mm-hmm.
Now, guys, I will get on to the giveaway. What I want to say is, look, 3 boys in here are going to absolutely kill me here for saying this, but ACHR Aviation and Rocket Lab earnings both happening the exact same day. I'm doing a vote, guys. You need to jump in and smash that like button. These streams are bigger than my Rocket Lab streams, but my Rocket Lab streams get more likes, more engagement. If you bang the like button, that is a vote that we will do the ACHR Aviation earnings over the Rocket Lab earnings. I can only do one stream on the channel, so do cast your vote, please. Now, I want to do comment of the day. There was one comment up here that I absolutely loved, and it did make me laugh, but I can't find it. It was something to do with about options trading. I think it was via CNC, wasn't it? Yeah, there we go. Comment of the day goes to via CNC. I'm afraid to understand options more. It's too tempting. I'm doing well enough with missionary position trading. Absolutely love it, my guy. Right. We'll get straight into the giveaway. Via CNC says, I'll vote Rocket Lab, but I'm a like either way. Thank you, my guy. Now, what I'll do we've just gifted 5 memberships there, so hopefully I will get them up on the screen. So we have Tom Maselli, Matan. Oh mate, I'm gonna mess up your name if I start pronouncing these. We'll just say Matan, Justin, Cameron, and Weeb and Keep. Guys, thank you so much. My name's Liam. I am one of the Hustle Brothers here with my family. I'm here with co-founder Reece, here with the OG Dylan Rogers, and then we're here with a fan favorite, Mark Berry. Guys, until Thursday, we'll speak to you again.
Have a
Sounds
great week, guys.